They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
Oh, man. All right. Well, here we are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to episode 700 of the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. I can't believe I'm sitting here recording episode 700 with you guys. It has been a journey. Jim, it's been fun,
crazy.
Guys.
700. You know, I swear every time too, like we get to 500, it's like, it's going to be forever before we get to 600. And I feel like 500 was just a year ago, right? Like, I mean, it takes a long time.
I remember doing 500.
Yeah. And
4 years.
It's crazy to think how long it takes to just do another 100 episodes.
Right?
It's unbelievable. I just got to say, I don't know if your listeners know this, but I've been an avid listener from day one, right? And I remember sending Raph a screenshot of I think it was 2,200 hours of listening to on my Spotify. And I was lucky enough to be a guest a couple times in the early days. I think it was like, I don't know, episode 180, 200 or whatever. And then it was in the early 600s. I think I was looking this morning, by the way. It was the early 600s. You had me come on as like a guest kind of thing. Like a guest co-host. And my first official co-host was episode 620. And I just got to say to you especially, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been amazing. And then
our
James
pleasure, man. This is great.
I'm an amazing friend. And I know the show got knocked down a couple of notches. You had to burn some subscribers to get me in here.
Yeah,
I think, but
I love this idea that, you know, Raph, we've talked about before having like the friends of the show. We used to have it on the podcast, right? Like there was people that, you know, would count like, oh man, this person's been on 4 times, 5 times. But apparently once you cross like 25,000 hours of listening time, like
join
send that in and you become
you just join the show, yeah. At that point, if you've listened to every episode, you should just be on the show. Like at that point,
dare I say, I listened to all of them maybe 2 or 3 times. You know, I just love it.
There's been, you know what, it's the old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. I got to tell you guys. So we're recording this on April 2nd, and I didn't want to record it on April 1st because stuff. But like reading the news yesterday the cyber news yesterday was super sad. and IT in general, like there's just, the Oracle dropped roughly 30,000 people and blamed it on the fact that they're making a $1 investment in AI. Yeah. I read that as the commitment they made to NVIDIA to build all these data centers that may or may never be populated. That'll be interesting to see. Good luck to those guys. But like, you got supply chain attacks going feral. Like, I like Jim's theory. Jim, what was your theory on security?
Right. It's fictitious. It doesn't exist.
Security is a myth. I thought that was
it's a myth. That's it. Sorry.
Security is a myth.
I was on the call with my team this morning. We were talking about security for the 4 billionth time, of course, because we do security. And I'm like, all right, from now on, we're just going to go along the impetus that it's a myth, and we're just trying to slay the dragon any way we can. We're never going to get there.
It's wild. Everything is like, I'm reminded of a Louis C.K. line, everything's amazing and nobody's happy, but like everything's amazing and we're solving nothing. It like all this new technology hits the market, right? I didn't go to RSA this past week, the first time in a very, 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 very long time. But that's okay. I don't feel like I missed much because I just, scrolled through all the vendors' AI presentations, and I think I got the gist. But like, I heard some people say that it shrank some. I heard that the quality had gone down a little bit, that there was everything was AI, and then nothing really made sense, and there was no differentiation. Again, people talked about the fact that there's too much AppSec related stuff out there. So all these advancements, right? We're going to automate the SOC, get rid of all the slow humans that think too slow and act too slow, and all that, and we're getting popped faster, harder, and more impactfully than ever. I we can just do this year over year, and I feel like it'll be a valid message. But at some point, does anybody even realize or know what we do here anymore? Not to be doom and gloom, but let's start there.
Yay, 700. No, I will say this is that I feel like it's become a combination of things. I always would say things like, and this sounds so morbid, I'm sorry, but probably a terrible analogy to use, but planes just don't fall out of the sky, right? Things go wrong. I mean, there's a plane just the other day in Brazil that landed with an engine blowing up, right? Yeah. What happens is all these holes in the Swiss cheese line up. Yeah. You have 1,000 things go wrong at the same time. And I kind of feel like that's happening with this industry right now. You have threats increasing exponentially. You have so many people like chasing the money game, right? Just trying to, sell the next product and move on and check out. And then you have this sort of dichotomy of new technologies emerging so fast that they're not really evaluated, AI kind of thing. Right. And it's almost too much. And you have to take security seriously. At some point, you have to decide, I'm going to take this seriously. And then we've not crossed that bridge on a pretty broad scale, except for a handful of industries. Well,
we haven't figured out how to define what seriously is in security anyway. And I think that's half the problem. I mean, we say seriously, but what does that even mean? Yeah. But, we have a difficulty of being able to distinguish between stuff that matters in security and stuff that we can claim as security, but doesn't really matter. I mean, you think about some of these things, right? Like session timeouts, like the difference between a 30-minute session timeout and a 2-hour session timeout for most application, whatever. My Facebook doesn't time out forever. I don't use Facebook, but apparently it doesn't ever time out. Right? Like a lot of this stuff does. I mean, there's so many things, response headers, like these different pieces that we can point to and say, it's a risk, but it's not really one I should care about. Right? Versus, hey, look, this is a serious risk. Like somebody finds this, it's going to be popped, or it's blaring us right in the face. We're going to fight it. But we treat everything across the board as the issue. And that's why we have a billion alerts instead of like the 5 key things that we need to make sure that we get done.
I'm with you right up until the point what Jim said is like things lining up. Like, yes, I have also often said that, like that's not a big enough issue. That's not a big enough issue. That don't even like, that's not a thing. Don't worry about that. And then in some weird space-time alignment, like those things just line up and create a superhighway for somebody to come in, grab a petabyte of data of yours and leave undetected. And you're like, well, crap, right? In the world of like we live in sort of I think a weird probability space, because you can't quite look at what we do like the automotive insurance industry or like life insurance / healthcare. Because this isn't like there's just so many. I think there's so many factors. I want to make this make sense, and I've been saying this to myself, like make it make sense to me. And we all want to make it about risk. We had Rob talking on about a couple months ago, talking about like, hey, don't patch stuff that doesn't matter, which doesn't matter until it does. Until 5 of those things that don't matter line up, and suddenly you go, oh shit, right? That just happened. Because like how many incidents have we all seen, heard of, or maybe even been involved in that were like seriously major problems where just the strangest of circumstances just happened to line up? You found a vulnerability. You have a login that lived a little too long so you could get to a screen, in somebody's browser by stealing their session, which didn't expire for a while. And then because of some access glitch, you can get to an admin section of the site, which then could make an admin account for yourself and you've won, right? Like individually, those things you're like, string them together and you're like, well, crap, which tells me that we suck at threat modeling.
Well,
I think
the problem too is stringing together as you're getting to the 1,000-year storm. You're not getting to the what's going to happen.
But what if that 1,000-year storm, James? What if that 1,000-year storm hits twice a week?
Which is technically possible.
It's possible.
Your floodplain.
I mean, are you protecting your house from the 1,000-year storm? Are you protecting anything? Like, do you do anything in your daily life that protects yourself from even 100-year storm that comes through? And when you're talking about having to chain 50 pieces together, if this was the case, nobody would fly in an airplane. Because that's exactly what I've watched all the air disasters. My son loves them, right? Every single one of those you can attribute to this is kind of like the 1,000-year, this had to this, to this, to this. And all those things to line up. If you're going to close every single one of those gaps, you're fighting an unwinnable battle.
Well, look, I will say this is at the end of the day, one is I'm really stressed out because I'm agreeing with Rap and I'm agreeing with you, James. I'm like freaking out. So, but the net of it is, and I hate to get all sort of esoteric, but humans suck at understanding a risk, right? We're fundamentally bad at it. The plane analogy is a perfect one. You're more apt to get harmed driving a car than you are on an airplane by a factor of 1,000, right? And
you're also not to interject, but I'm going to make Josh Corman crazy for a second. You're also more likely to get killed by a vending machine than a shark. But continue.
Yeah, exactly. But I have been bit by sharks. So anyway, the net of it is that I think also is we can slice this cheese. I guess we're going to stick with this Swiss cheese analogy. We're going to slice this cheese, but I think we can do it at two different points. There's Raph talking about like what we need to fix, and you mentioned earlier, James, like what we're monitoring. I actually think that like we are looking for bad things to happen, and we get the thousands of alerts, and we think more alerts, more better. Like we talked about before, like measuring the weather. Oh, my external website's been scanned 1 billion times. I don't care, right? Yeah. Who cares? I don't have control over that. But I do believe is that I think there's legitimacy in looking to try to fix as much as you can so you minimize those holes if you can, right? And so it's funny we're in the 21st century, 2026, this is being recorded, episode 700, and we're still talking about patch management. And I can tell you, having listened to all the episodes, this is a theme that's been around for a while. So we're sitting here talking about like solving these giant problems and dealing with these sort of everything from psychological interpretation issues all the way down to technical issues. And we're still having trouble with like the most basic stuff, right? So, I mean, I agree, James. I think, do you really need to look at all these different risks? Because then everything becomes risky. It's like data classification. All of a sudden, everything becomes important, right? I think is like, sometimes I feel, can we just retreat a little bit and kind of say, we're going to commit all resources to fixing this one problem because it's been the same one forever.
It's interesting the way you said, though, fix what we can, which ties right back into risk-based delivery of what can I fix? And based on my other priorities, I can provide, resources to do this, right? Like we still have to prioritize because even though we can look at everything that comes out of a SaaS scanner and say, we can fix all that. We can. Are we going to? No. Should we? Probably not. Right? Like that's a stupid waste of time to fix every single thing that comes out of there. Do I care? Even in a chain of events of the 1,000-year storm, is the fact that a response header came down and said I was running IIS the crux to the whole thing, right? Like those type of things all kind of, come together of, do you solve every single problem or do you do it? It's good for the business as far as like, this is good enough. Right.
Well, what is the full scope of problems we're trying to solve that are not those core problems? Like if you get to spend all your time on fixing one aspect, I mean, this comes back to, anyway, we're sitting trying to solve world hunger. We've done this 700 times.
Same story, 700 episodes later.
It is incredibly frustrating as somebody who's sat in this chair and talked about it as somebody who's sold the means to which we could solve some of these problems and then been on the implementer side enough times to know that it's really tough. This is one of those. Jim, you said at the beginning, it's a human. We're fighting human nature in a lot of cases. Mm. It's almost like this is the closest analogy I can think of is like police work, right? We are in terms of what do we actually do? But it's not just that, because it's police work coupled with if the police and insurance investigators and insurance policy writers all lived in the same house, and all did work together. Like, this is such a unique, to me, craft and such a unique trade that it makes it difficult, because on one surface of it, like, hey, look, we found stuff that we want to, like, oh, look, a new exotic attack. Will anybody use it? Maybe not. But maybe. And you're like, all right, well, I guess I got to protect against that. Oh, by the way, there's another new one and another new one and another new one. You're like, well, at what point? I've always wanted to ask, and I've asked this, and I've helped advise on this conversation. And the question that I always come back to is, at what point are you, as you said, James, good enough? Where do you stop?
Money.
And the follow-up to that is, why do we suck so bad at answering that question?
I think too, your analogy to police work is interesting, and Jesus, I could go all day. But like, I just look at the police that are here, right? The siloing, and the number of times I've seen people, like police officers, a guy ran a red light sitting right next to the police officer, didn't do it, right? Oh, but wait, I don't do that, right? I'm not a traffic cop. I don't mess with that. Like, you're a police officer, right? Like, the number of things and the discretion in that environment where they can determine, that's not bad enough, right? Right or wrong, that guy runs that red light, right in, merges with the other traffic, causes a wreck, kills somebody, right? The chain of events that could have happened. Like, it is similar, right? This idea that we're both in a situation where you're making a decision on that's against the rules, right? Whether that's a vulnerability finding, whether that's a speeding fine, right? Like, it's against the rules. What happens if I do or don't take action against it? I don't. Most of the time, probably nothing. I don't. Very rarely. Maybe the catastrophic piece happens, and I think it's similar to us, right? Like, we're busy, as Jim was saying, as humans. We're making these decisions to be like, my gut kind of says I'm not dealing. Like, I'm okay with letting that go right now, and that either works out most of the time, or that rare occasion things all fly together and all of a sudden doesn't work out.
It's weird because the vendors and marketing will tell are here to tell you have to solve every problem, because every problem will be a catastrophe, and if you don't solve it, you'll go out of business or get sued. Those behind the desk in the real world will tell you it's impossible. That is not it's not within the realm of human possibility for a number of reasons. One, the most important of which is we can't solve for human nature and the fact that people are greedy and creative at the same time. And then there's this insatiable need for following the next cool new technology trend, even if at this point it feels like it's going to end us all. That's where people are pouring money. And yes, I'm talking about AI. It's really bonkers town for me to think about how we're functioning as a trade that rides the doomsday scenario every single day, where it could come out of left field at any given point, and all the best technology, all the most learned, knowledgeable, intelligent, hacker-oriented folks look at it and go, I didn't see that coming. Mm-hmm. But that happens every single day. It's the black swan that shows up every day. So at this point, you just sort of have to get, in my mind, right? Like, supply chain attack. Holy cow, the North Koreans figured out how to get in and modify some source code that everybody downloads 1 million times a week. What? And so now everybody's impacted, right? That one piece of software that everybody used to do find stuff on your network and updates. When that got popped a while back, right? Like, oh God, they got into the pieces that hold up the pieces. That's sort of like, some of it is really playing the long game. But in our industry, obviously the long game is like 6 months. But it's like I was explaining this to somebody the other day, like with some of these threat actors, it's like becoming an employee at the concrete company, knowing that at some point they're going to build a strategic bridge that your nation state wants you to make sure doesn't last. And so every day you do something just tiny enough to either modify the formula or plant a butt or do something so that by the time they're building that bridge, that there's no way that thing stands more than 5 minutes. But that's not something that's not a project you start yesterday. You start that ages ago.
Yeah. But I mean, compare that though, like the things that you're mentioning. I mean, that obviously is definitely the long game, but some of those other pieces, the supply chain attack that recently came out, all these things, these are not I chained 50 things together to put this stuff, right? Like this was I hit that. I hit this. It's credential stuffing, right? Like breach credentials. These are how attacks are happening. The majority of the attacks that are really taking places down are not because they were able to chain together a bunch of obscure things to be able to get in. It was because there was a door in the back that was unlocked that nobody was looking at, right, to be able to walk through. And that's the problem. The other side of it is we live this doomsday, everything is the end of the world. How many of the things that we've seen over the past 700 episodes, over that time frame, have actually been the end of the world, exactly. Right? We sell everything as it's over. I mean, Sony years ago, got wiped out huge, but they're back up. Nothing ever happened. We rarely see the impact that we're sold, I think, is some of that problem as well. Like, it's not saying that it couldn't be there.
Yeah.
But, OPM breach. Oh my gosh, they got fingerprints, they got biometrics, they got all this stuff. I mean, what are we, like freaking 10 years later now? Where's the
arguably that kind of stuff is still being used though, right? I mean, that you can
that's the really, really important part is there's these second, third, and fourth order effects.
Yeah.
Like the OPM one, I can tell you I know that's having an effect on folks, right? But it doesn't make the news kind of thing.
Right. Does it? Yeah. Right. Like that stuff is not.
Yeah.
We don't see the devastation. Be clear. I'm not saying that it doesn't have a devastating effect on some individuals, but the extent at which it's sold is different than the extent at which we're seeing. And this is why so many people, I think, non-security people, like whatever.
Well, not only that, but I mean, all right, first, I remember very early in my career getting exhausted by the whole FUD argument, which that was the birth of pen testing. Well, nobody could do that. And then you go and you do it and you pen test and say, see, I did it, right? So that was like the birth of FUD kind of thing. And I remember getting really just tired of it. And this was in the 90s. I was like, can we have a business conversation or do something different where we're just not holding this piano hanging from a chain over you like a cartoon and saying that the world's going to fall apart? But it was the only way to get people to move forward. And of course, regulation, all this kind of stuff. But I do think there's a fatigue issue happening. I think there's a point where businesses feel that no matter what I do, it's a best guess. And I just keep spending money. And that is then the other sort of alignment of holes and cheese with this industry is somebody shows up and says, hey, you need to spend $4 million or $10 million or $40 million. I've seen $100 million budgets be added to a security program. And then they go, this will solve everything. Here's $100 million go. And then 6 months later, it's like, hey, I need another $20 million for this. I need another $30 million for this, or change the zeros. And so one is security. We're constantly saying, oh, you got to do this business, you got to do this business. And so the business is getting exhausted by it all.
Yeah.
People are getting exhausted by it all. And then you have a situation, to exactly your point, James, that there are some things that are just cheesy attacks, right? And, the $5 wrench concept. So
yeah.
These things happen and you're like, okay, we're spending all this money, time, and energy. And I'm being told that my credit card's going to get stolen, blah, 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 blah. No matter what I do, it happens anyway. it's kind of like privacy in many cases, right?
Yeah.
You know, it sounds good on paper, but then, you know, you try to do something about it and you still get popped.
Depressing rap over there.
Yeah, he's about to fall out of his chair. His eyes rolled so hard, for those who can't see, he almost tilted out of his chair.
You know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I'm still so upset. Maybe not upset's not the right word. Disillusioned, something. When I've been here for the entire train wreck in slow motion. Like I've been here the entire time. And there's, you know, there's no shortage of people telling you what's next. What will be the next solution? The ultimate, hey, you know, this is going to solve it. We've been doing it wrong all along. If only we had whatever, this widget, this thing, this process, this tool, this methodology, everything would be okay. And that's great. And that hype train has its cycle, and eventually it'll sell back into, yeah, but it still fails in some new extraordinary ways that nobody had come up with. And then it'll be the next thing. You know, at some point, okay, at some point, do we just recognize that we're doing best effort, best guess, and in some cases, YOLO security? Like, you know, okay. Like, you know, I remember sitting in project meetings where the project managers, 20 years ago, where the project manager's like, we want to do this thing. And I'm thinking, I'm like, holy crap, that is the riskiest, dumbest thing you could do. And really, with all these years of experience, another 20 years of my career gone by, some of those things I would look back and go like, you know what? Fine.
I mean, that's really how it is. Isn't it? It's interesting, the maturity as you go through security, right? When you first start in, right? Like everything's the end of the world, right? Like, oh my gosh, like it's black and white. I mean, it's not a security thing, right? This is anything you get into, man. You start learning something new, like you've got all this knowledge, and it's like it's black or white. And then as you start going through and seeing things, and you build context, and you build experience, and you're like, yeah, I mean, that's risky, but you know, it probably wouldn't have hurt to do that. We would have been fine.
James, is it maturity, or do we just get jaded enough to where we're just like, whatever, fine? It's like with kids. All right, I'm gonna relate this to everybody listening that has kids or has had kids or knows somebody with kids or is a kid, because I know some of you are kids, practically speaking. But you know, like I've told my kids, guys, you need to like clean up after yourselves. Don't leave the house in the morning with your PJs on the floor. Like, there's only so many times I can say that. Eventually, I'm just gonna go, okay, you're fine. And then they're gonna come back to me like, the big one was like the wet towel on the floor. Oh man, my towel was wet from yesterday. Did you hang it up? No, I forgot. Okay, well,
get a wet towel.
Dad was there to tell you the first 37,000 times. The 37,001st time, I was like, you know what? They're just gonna. Fine.
It's similar though. Take that. I mean, same kid scenario. Their bike and a helmet.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can sit there and tell, like the risk level says, hey, you should use a helmet. Now, to be fair, most of the time, probably if they don't wear a helmet, they're probably going to be fine. Yeah. Right. At what point do you sit there like through experience and knowing, okay, they run this route, nothing ever happens. That risk has gone down. Now, still, of course, if you crash, there's a problem there, right? But the reality of it is they're probably not going to, or something.
I will tell you, I made it through my entire childhood into my 20s, never once wearing a bike helmet. One, because my parents didn't realize, like, that wasn't a thing in the 80s and 90s, first off. Like, nobody cared, right? And I did all sorts of stupid shit on my bike. Jumped ramps, jumped over friends, drove in traffic, all kinds of dumb things. Didn't die. Probably didn't get too much brain damage from the times I did fall. So like, okay, I survived. Was it a good idea? No. Did I make it through? Yes.
Right.
How do you justify those things?
I mean, if you look at just like security, right? The bike helmets are sold on the what if. You can take statistics that you show, but if you probably actually looked at statistics of, head injuries to bicycle, I bet they're pretty low. For helmets, right? Like, I mean, I knew somebody got hit by a car. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
But is it as high as what the people that make bike helmets made it to be? That you're thinking? I mean, it's a different.
Well, no, because you would never buy it, James. If you knew the actual statistical risk, you'd never buy the thing. Most of the, I'm going to say it, and people are going to hate me for it. Most of the shit on the RSA floor, if you actually knew it, you had some foresight, what the damage of the impact versus the cost of the thing you're about to make an investment in, very few people would go and make the investment. Why? Because it's just not justifiable, but the scare factor is there. But I'm telling you, it is wearing off, and it is wearing off real fast.
Very fast.
So something maybe to spin us a little bit from this. I thought it was interesting, and being, at 700
pull up.
Yeah.
Stay on target.
Going down. I saw something interesting yesterday on LinkedIn. Somebody had posted, and they were asking a question about, I'm thinking about, and this was in regards to like cold emailing people. I'm thinking about purposely adding typos so that way people will know I'm real and not think that I'm AI or something like that.
I already started doing that.
Now, listen, it was yesterday. I don't know if this was April Fool's. I did comment on it. I thought it was interesting because I'm like, so my comment is, it's interesting that 10 years ago, we would have told you if there was typos in the email, it's a phishing attempt.
Yeah.
Ignore it. And here we've come full cycle that we've gone so much that it's like, hey, look, if there's typos in it, it's probably a human.
Yeah. That's funny.
Like this circle of life that's happened of what we warned about for so long. This was the key indicator, that and grammar. And now we've come around to say, not that he's saying he's actually going to do it, just tossing ideas, right? But to think that I'm going to start throwing typos and bad grammar in here so people know it's me doing it and I didn't use AI to do it is crazy.
And the weird part is you can train AI to put in typos.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The AI thing is getting really, really interesting in like the devil and angel concept, right? You know what I mean? It's like, it's this really crazy thing that's happening in security right now. And I really do believe there is some validity to the concerns that some people are sharing with it as it relates to security. I know it's kind of a joke, right? The whole Claude thing gets leaked, air quotes for they can't see. And then now like stock just tumbles for all these security companies, which is that's a financial reality. But, is it expressing sentiment? Is it expressing what's going to happen? Is it expressing, what does that mean in the near term or even the long term? But the AI thing is, but the more I dig into it, the more I'm like, oh boy.
Never mind the physical impacts, Jim, of the fact that nobody can buy hardware anymore because all these people are building out these AI data centers and nothing's available, right? I mean, literally, we were getting a new computer for one of my sons for gaming. And the Best Buy guy was sitting there telling me, he was like, people are coming in buying those machines
just to get the chip,
just to get the 32 gigs of RAM that's in it. He said, because that RAM, he's like 2 months ago would have been like $200. He's like, now he's like, you're paying like $700 for that RAM. He's like, they'll come in and use it for spare parts. They'll buy the full machine just to get the components out of it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because people aren't able to get like components, trying to source laptops, desktops, all that stuff. Like, it's hard because apparently I've heard that it's because they're grabbing all this stuff to be able to support AI.
And the guys who are making like the AI dongles, the processor and the dongle, you can't find those anymore. Even those are even tiny little dongles that do a little AI, have a little AI processing capability in them, are disappearing.
Yeah, like, it's crazy everywhere. But it's just interesting. Well, just on the AI thing real quick, I'm waiting to see. I think this is going to be like a cloud boom. Everybody's going to go all in on it. And then you're going to start seeing in like 2 or 3 years, people start pulling like, I'm going to start doing stuff on-prem again. I'm going to get out of the cloud. It costs too much. Wait till AI, those token prices start jacking up and you're fully in on it. And all of a sudden that $100,000 a year AI service you're using is $3 million a year because they know they got you. And those tokens are going to.
Mark James's word right here on this day.
That, or it's going to just start taking.
100% agree with you.
It's going to start taking 10 times as many tokens to do everything you want because these LLMs are so large.
and there's no way out of it, right?
No way out.
I mean,
I just fired 30,000 people to go all in on AI.
Well, listen,
right.
this is actually a pretty good time, because as one of the things I've had on my screen all morning here since yesterday is Stephen Klein's post on the Oracle 30,000 6 a.m. termination. And he's right. The official story is that AI is replacing jobs that are no longer needed. He goes, here's what, people aren't reading. And it's Oracle borrowed $58 billion in 2 months, raised another $50 billion in bonds in February, just in February, and committed $156 billion in AI data center CapEx. And now they're like $10 billion short on cash flow. That's not innovation. That's a desperate company.
Wow.
Like, that's desperation. That's like, oh my God, we are about to like go. But how do you make 17, 20, whatever billion a year and then like make that big of a bet and then suddenly end up desperate?
Well, my first, oh my God, I can go in so many directions, but I just want to get this out. And then is, who's buying all this when nobody has jobs anymore, right? It's like, we're going to replace hundreds of thousands of millions of people. We're going to make it all AI, but nobody's going to be able to afford it because we're still trying to get food in our kids' mouths. But this one right here is what I find fascinating, is why they're in that situation, in my humble opinion, is they drank the Kool-Aid. I think a lot of people are excited about AI. They are passionate about it. They love the story, and it swirls up in the boardroom, and everybody's like, well, this person's doing AI. They're doing this and this, and everybody wants a piece of it. So all of a sudden, it's like, I got to run 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I don't care who I step on to get there, because I don't want to be last. I don't want to be that guy or gal, or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's basically everybody's gone crazy.
Well, I wonder too, like, you see these companies that announce and say, hey, we're laying off people, because we're going the direction of AI. Are they laying them off because they need the funds to pay for the AI? Is that where that's coming from? Like,
yeah,
it appears that way.
It's not that I'm necessarily replacing your work with that. We're going a different direction, but it's going to cost me 10 employees for this one AI agent that we're going to do. So I got to let you go.
So but if I can do the work of 100 people with AI, clearly the cost of 10 people is no big deal, right? It's just a shell game at that point. Right?
Until you're looking 5 years from now, waiting to hire all those people back because you're like, I don't know what the heck this thing's doing.
Oh, but by then there's a different executive in place, right? I don't have to worry about that. That's tomorrow's problem. I'm making my VIG now.
It's coming. I think there's going to be a bubble with that.
Yes, sir.
We're going all in with it, and there's got to be something that's going to happen with it that's not going to be good. That, I don't know, maybe some of these slower companies to adapt will come out a little bit ahead at that point.
I think the killer apps is when people will be able to do real things that are truly problematic, right? If we can, like, for example, using computers and doing certain things can be like a real pain, like patch management, right? So if we can actually solve tangible things, but I don't like the idea of, AI art, right? AI music and stuff like that, because that's what being a human is about, kind of thing, not patching computers.
You say that, but the problem with one of the problems, I'm going to say the problem, is it's like ransomware. Right, we're deploying it everywhere. We really don't have a true idea of what the effect is having. So you could sit there and send ransomware blindly out to IP addresses on the internet, right? And for the most part, if it screws something up, not really that big of a deal, until it screws up the hospital, and now they can't intake patients and they can't do whatever, right? And we've already seen. There was an article not too long about Amazon having some discussions about, hey, we're having some serious more outages than normal here. We need to get a hold on this AI causing problems. Where do we get to that, where we start getting to making sure that's not affecting physical things like that? And I also wonder, is AI, does it just give us more of an excuse for poor quality?
It already is.
It's got hallucinations. I was going to say, that horse is left behind. It's just that excuse, like, oh man, this stuff's down. It's like, oh well, AI made that mistake. Don't hold us accountable. AI did it. We'll go back and fix it, right? But we can't control it. I mean, it's just making best guess.
Yeah, but you know what? You're only going to see that mistake because AI decided to tell you made a mistake. Because right now, people are in legitimate interactions with each other that are actually being fed through AI, right? I mean, how many times have you received clearly an AI email? You're like, okay, fine. Draft me a response. Hit send, right? You know? And the next thing you know, there's this whole interaction, right? So unless there's an error in there that AI raises to the surface, you know, so this one guy that's on copy that sees, well, that's not possible. That's a hallucination right there. You just asked for, and then
the good news is when the whole East Coast region goes down, no longer is it the intern's fault; it's AI's. So interns can breathe easy.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be fired. That's how everything works, right?
Yeah, I feel like it. I think this is a good place to close off because we're going to go down some deeper rabbit holes if we don't let this one leave the barn now. I don't know, guys. It's been 700 episodes. I've had a blast. I don't foresee us stopping before 1,000. And as long as I still have some way to fund this, I'll keep going. It's been fun. The episode you're probably listening to in your podcast player as we record this is the one with Marcus Hutchins. And I know people find him polarizing and people have various opinions of him. And I'm in that crowd. He's a fascinating dude. So much taller in person than I thought. Like looking up at a guy you're interviewing, he's just so weird. But then again, I'm only, like 5'9", so I'm short. But he's such an interest. Like I'm about to hit send as soon as we get done recording this. I'm about to hit send on the soundbite from his episode, and it's the last thing I asked. I asked us, "What do you want to leave us with?" If you've listened to the show already, to that podcast already, you're either thinking "What a moron" or "Yup," and it's one of two camps. And if you haven't, just listen to the whole episode and listen very carefully at the end. Anyway. I've got a bunch of good guests lined up for you guys coming up in the future. I've got some companies that have good ideas. So if you're in the PR world and you've already been blindingly sending my mailbox, 50 a day, there's a reason I don't respond to all of them. But, if you've got somebody that's interesting for a reason that's interesting and they're an interesting person, send it in. I'll take a look at it, and I try to get back to everybody. But it's been a lot of fun, you guys. The trend continues to go up and to the right, as they say. We add a few more listeners every week, and it's exciting. And this is you know what? There's nothing I'd rather be doing than hanging out with you guys and talking about the fate of mankind and human beings. I feel like we could pivot to like aliens or global thermonuclear war or something. That would be a very similar conversation. We'd probably be just as qualified.
Pretty much. Maybe we need to start recording these. Like they just had that shuttle launch yesterday. We should record live on those things. Like we can talk about the shuttle launches and
I've seen a shuttle launch once. I'm an expert.
Hopefully, talk about hopefully everything's still here when they try to come back down. Like that.
That would be a weird fact.
Can you imagine they go to the other side of the moon, and then as they cross back over to this side, they're like, "Wait, wasn't there something?
Did we take a wrong turn?
Did we go somewhere?" Oh God! All right, and on that glorious ending, James, thanks for being along since 33. Jim, thanks for being along since 680, 620,
620.
So 80 weeks and counting. Lots of friends along the way, lots of great episodes. We're going to continue doing this for you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for supporting the show. Check us out on YouTube. That's how we make this thing go is, subscribe, get your friends to subscribe, get them to listen, share it out there. It's great to have you guys on LinkedIn as well. Spread the links around, join the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast page on there and, interact because this is something that we suck at as community in general, just interacting with each other. So anyway, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys another time, another place on the next episode, 701 of the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you later. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.